Hello friends, today I'm going to teach you how to paint a sunset. Well, I've got I'm working on a half sheet of paper here, and I've got washi tape, which is just a light, easily removable tape on all of the edges. And for this type of painting, I'm also going to take one piece, and wherever I want my horizon line to be, like if I want a lot of sky, I would put it down here. If I want half and half, I would go here. I want like a little more sky than water, so I'm gonna go about halfway. And I'm just gonna smooth it down with my finger. We're gonna take this one off halfway through the painting. But the way these sunset paintings work is the top part is the sky. We can use any colors we want. The bottom part is the water. We can use any colors that we want. The top part's going to be kind of melty, like a sky. So I'm going to come in. Here's my water. I'm just going to put my brush in water, and I'm going to kind of skate some water across this section. I'm not saturating it. I'm just getting this paper wet. And I'm not using the metal part of the brush to hit the paper. I'm using the tip of the brush. So I'm just slowly dancing across the surface of the top of my paper. Getting a little water on there. All right. And we don't have to actually put a sun in our painting, believe it or not. But I'm going to start with some yellow at the bottom. And I'm just going to put a little bit of light yellow. I'm going to add some water to that. And I'm going to get some more yellow paint. And I'm just bringing this yellow across. You can see it's very light, very bright. Keep watering it down. This yellow is really traveling. All right, so I've got my yellow. And then I'm going to come right in with the orange. So I'm going to get a little bit of orange, make sure it's nice and watery, and just go right across the top. And I'm only using the tip of this brush. And what we want to do with our orange is go right across this line and then sweep it down a little bit into that wet yellow paint. Excuse me. And just let it get nice and melty. And then while it's still wet up here at the top, we'll add a little red and a line the same way that we just did with the orange. Sweep back and forth. Wow, sorry, I'm very coughy today. And we'll take a little bit of that red down this way. Not a lot. We want it to be dreamy, melty. And as we start getting toward these corners, we can bring in a little bit more color. But it's still not too much. And then across the very top, I'm going to go with purple. Oops, not blue, purple. So I'm just sweeping this across the top, and I'm going to let it do its thing with the red. So what I'm trying to avoid, and I'm not being super successful at, I don't want to get a lot of that purple into this orange, because that's going to make brown. What do we do? I'm going to get a little more red. See what happens if I drop some red through there, and I'll just pull it down. We'll just make it red. All right, so now we just have this little base. It's lovely. If you want clouds, what you can do is tear up a piece of paper towel, scrunch it, and then make some little clouds with your dry paper towel. So we can go like, there's a cloud. There's a cloud. And if you get this action where it doesn't look very cloudy, just get your paper towel wet, dab it on there, come back in with water from your brush, and you can just smooth it over. Then it kind of looks like it's a little cloudy. And at this top edge, I think I'm even going to bring in just a tiny bit of blue, just a little, the littlest bit. Just to give us that darkness coming down from the top of the sky. Friends, this is all we need to do for that sky. At this point, I want to kind of just fan it real fast and let it dry. What I'm really concerned with drying is this bottom edge. So I'm just going to give it a little time. You can, at this point, start thinking about what color you want your water to be. Do you want your water to be blue, purple, navy, green, brown? There's all sorts of colors you can put in water, and it looks great. But, spoiler alert, the thing that we're going to do differently in the water than we did in the sky was where this is all blendy and melty, our water is going to look very choppy. We're going to use kind of what we would maybe call a dry brushing technique, and that's going to give us that feeling of the gleam of the sun on the water. All right, so this is dry, and I'm very concerned with right here being dry. And I'm only taking off this piece of tape. So now we have this beautiful white, perfect line there. We didn't have to stay very straight with our brush. Now for my next trick, I'm gonna take another piece of tape, and I'm gonna place this just at the edge of that line so that we have now made a barrier for when we paint our water. It's okay if it overlaps like a millimeter. I'm not worried about it. All right, so now we can paint our water. I think my water is going to be, I'm gonna go with green. I'm gonna do some green and blue. All right, you can see that there's a lot of paint in my brush. That's not what we want for this kind of water. So I'm gonna come over here in the lid of my paint and kind of get a little bit of paint out. And I got some water on the top of my brush from when I went in my water. But I'm gonna get a little bit of paint out of my brush so that I can kind of pull it across and have this dry look. You see how that looks kind of dry? That's what I want. And again, we're not smashing the metal part of our brush into on our paper. We're just using this tip of the brush, and we're kind of swiping left to right. And we're making these very broken, I mean, usually this isn't the technique that I like to use in watercolor, but it works beautifully when we're painting water that's supposed to have a little bit of the sun glimmer on it. So I'm adding these very light swipes in here. So I don't need a lot of paint on my brush at this time. My goal right now isn't to cover the whole paper. My goal is to leave some white showing through so we can keep getting gradually darker and darker. And as we do, get some more green, we'll keep getting gradually darker and darker. And as we do, we're going to build depth. So this part through the center needs to be nice and light. We can be a little darker kind of over here on the edges and along the bottom. But we'll come and put maybe some more color. Whatever color you've chosen for the water, start thinking about another color that might go nicely with it. So these are quick strokes. quick, straight across, nothing fancy. And I'm going to get a little bit more and make sure I tap a little bit of that paint out from my brush. And I'm going to try to make sure that I've got this edge covered so that when I remove this tape, we'll have a nice solid line of paint. But this is a super quick maneuver. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side with this paint that's still left over right here, so that this edge, when I pull this edge up, and then we can pull those lines across. All right, I'm gonna put a few more through here, but I want a great deal of that white to be showing through. That is not a problem for me. I want some bright, nice light white. All right, so now I want to fan this a little bit. It doesn't have to be totally dry, but I want to dry it just a tiny bit. If you don't have a fan, it's very easy to just use another piece of paper or find a piece of junk mail, a flyer, a brochure, something that you can fan it with. If you happen to be in the hospital and you have one of the art kits we sent you and you have the little pad of paper, you can just use that pad of paper to fan your artwork. All right. That is, it's not totally dry, but it's drying a little bit. While we wait, I'm gonna start mixing my next color. I would like a color that's sort of green, but also maybe sort of blue. I'm gonna make this lovely lagoon color. So there's some bits of green in here. And this can be kind of dark because we can come over and pat it over here and water it down. So some green, definitely some blue. So we're getting kind of a blue-green. Looking good. I'm gonna go a tiny bit bluer though. All right, perfect. So we're gonna do similar to what we just did. Oh, sorry, that was clanky. Similar to what we just did, we're gonna come in here, and again, we wanna leave some white space through the middle. So we're it's kind of like you're coming and putting some dashes just here and there. I know you're thinking, look, this does not look that great, Kasey. This doesn't look like water. Just trust this process. So we're gonna pull from this edge, kind of toward the center. And then we'll pull from this edge over toward the center. Hopefully leaving plenty of that lovely white in the middle while adding some color. And I'm just using the very tip of this brush to get that nice dry brush effect. It's doing great. It's working. All right, next I'm going to add a little more blue. So I'm going to blue it up and darken it up a little bit more. And it's still going to be choppy like it is. Fan it just a tiny bit. It doesn't have to be super dry between these layers, but the drier it is, the less the paint will blend. So we'll see. That'll be cool. All right, that's enough for now. So now I'm going to go into my new blue color that I made and just kind of do the same thing. We're leaving a lot of white in the middle though. Don't forget. We're going to slowly build our darkness kind of from the sides and the bottom. And it doesn't have to get real dark, but This is just kind of how we do it. So make sure that you're allowing some of that white to continue to show through. Meanwhile, we'll keep adding some of these kind of almost like zebra stripes coming from the side. And then we can add more blue. So it's just this process of slowly making this darker and bluer. And we just do that by adding a little more of the blue pigment to what we have over here. You could also make it darker and greener. That is completely up to you. And then I'm going to come down from these bottom edges and continue adding just a little bit of that dark from the bottoms and the sides. Through this middle, I'm just kind of doing this. I'm not putting huge chunks of this dark blue through here, and I'm leaving that white showing through. I know that right now when you look at it, you don't feel like it looks like much, but later when you come back and look at this, it's really going to look like water with reflection on it. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just adding a little more blue, and then I'm coming in from these edges and just kind of adding very sparingly. I'm adding this darker blue here. And we can add some of it through the center. Just want to make sure that we still have that pretty white showing through. One of the hardest things for me to paint watercolor wise is reflections. They just don't look like what they're supposed to look like while I'm painting them. What happens is I walk away. I don't look at my painting for a while. Maybe it's the next day. And I come back and think to myself, oh my gosh, that is quite spectacular. Kind of can't believe it looks so great. So sometimes you just have to sleep on it. Sometimes you have to have some absence to make your heart grow fonder of your art. And sometimes you just don't like it. That's okay. If you aren't happy with it, as long as you had a good time making it, you've still benefited from engaging in the art process. So always just try. Don't let fear of success keep you from trying anything artistic. All right, and kind of the drier this brush gets, the more I can kind of sweep it across those white areas and call it a day. So that's plenty. Now we're gonna dry this. We're gonna fan it a little bit. Or if you have a hairdryer, you can always bust out the hairdryer. Sometimes though, if you use a heat, it will make the tape lift, and that can be annoying. But we want to get this nice and dry. And I know you don't want to watch me fan this, so I will pause and be right back. All right, I'm back. It's dry. And now we're going to peel this piece of tape. And what I want you to do, if you've taped it, peel down and at an angle. So you're going to peel this way. Then, as you pull down, it resists. I mean, it releases a little bit more nicely. So there we have our sunset. And you can leave it at this, or what I'm gonna do is add some kind of like some rocks coming in. So I'm gonna do that in black. And I know it seems scary because you have just painted this really beautiful thing. And you're thinking to yourself, no, I don't want to add anything to it. You don't have to. This can be your painting. This can be it. You can be done. But I'm going to show you how to add a little bit of environment to this. So here we go. I'm going to get this black, and this black needs to be thick. So we need to water it down, but not to where it is translucent. We're using a different, this is just going to be in silhouette. So it can be sort of thick, but we don't want it to be gummy. We just want it to be kind of inky. All right. So here comes the scary part. I'm going to start, where am I going to start? I'm going to start like right here, and I'm going to kind of come down and out. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to just drag my brush down. And then I want at some point, I want a point. So I'm going to pull backward. And when I pull backward, it makes that point really sharp. So this is our little cove, kind of our little rocky outcropping. And then the bottom is going to just be flat. So I can pull that way. And then the bottom's completely flat. And we don't want to see any blue back here. I want this to be nice and black because it is in complete silhouette. And if you want this to be more jagged, all you got to do is hold your brush very rigid in your hand and just kind of move your shoulder like that. And if you do what I just did and mess this part up, you can just make this go a little bit deeper into the water. So that's how we fix that problem. We just make it go a little bit lower. I did get a little spot of black right there, and that's driving me bananas. But I'm either going to ignore it or I'll go put a tree there in a minute. Okay, so now let's get some more black. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. However, I'm going to start just a little bit lower and come a tiny bit further across. Try not to cover up too much of your beautiful water, though. You worked hard for that water. All right, so I'm going to come across, and then we'll go down and kind of pull this right to here, and that'll be the bottom of that little rocky piece. And then we'll pull it straight back this way and fill it in. And if you work quickly enough, this paint stays wet, and you can kind of just fill it in, and the paint that's already there will wick it. It'll help this paint travel kind of to the edge of where you stopped. All right, so now I'm going to I want to pull this point out and make it very, very sharp, because it needs to just fall off right into the water. It's not always easy with these brushes that come with the paints, because sometimes we have used our brush a lot and it's worn down, but that's all right. We got this. We can make it work. So now I'm going to pull this way, but I'm going to do the same thing where I keep my brush very rigid and just kind of moving my shoulder. I wasn't doing that with my wrist. I was just moving my shoulder and letting it just take on that very natural shape. And I'm just going to pull this out as thin as I can and call it a day. I feel like this one could be thinner. Oh, why do I? There we go. Okay. So now we have these two little cliffs in silhouette. They're lovely They're nice and dark. And we can put another one kind of right here, like a little island coming up. I think that's what I'm going to do. So it's just, again, I'm holding very firm. And I'm just going to kind of make this shape. It's a nonsense shape, but it's a kind of like a natural formation, so it doesn't have to be very perfect. It can be really whatever I want it to be. So there's my other rock. This one can go all the way to the edge. That one can go all the way to the edge. That is completely up to you. So now I have my lovely rocks, my lovely sky, and this is a great point to be done if you want. You can also add some trees if you would like to, but I think I'm going to leave mine just like this. And there is a tiny black dot right there, but I think what I'm going to do is just make that hill bigger so that I don't have to deal with looking at that little spot. There we go. See how easy that was? No one but you and me will ever know that I had that little spot. All right. Friends, we're done. You want to wait for these edges to get very, very dry before you pull that tape off. So I'm actually going to get my hair dryer so I can show you how to do this. And oh, I need more paint. All right. Right here, I can see that green starting to come through, so I'm going to add a little paint. This needs to be just a tiny bit darker. You could always add a little animal silhouette on top of there if you want to. All right, I will be back when this is dry, and we will pull the tape, and we'll see what it looks like. All right, I'm back. It's dry. I think it's dry. This paint, this black paint can get a little bit shiny, gummy if you don't thin it out enough, and I maybe didn't here, but I think it'll be fine. All right, I'm gonna move my paint, move my tray, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull these off. And again, when we take this tape off, let's try to be at an angle so that we're lifting up and away, so moments like that happen. That is a beautiful edge. All right. And then we can just get rid of that tape. We're not using it again unless you're a person who likes to reuse tape. I know some people do that. For me, it just gets a little bit of a hot mess on this tape. So I use new tape every time, but sometimes people are pretty good at reusing their tape. All right, so again, I'm peeling away slowly at an angle. And that edge looks really nice too. Sometimes I have a little security breach and I'm not gonna let it get to me. If I have a little bit of paint get out from under there, it's okay. All right, so pulling up and away. Great, good edge there. And I just have this one more edge. Let's see, hopefully we do all right. Come on, tape. Oh, tape, you did such a great job. There we go. So there's my final painting, and I really like the way it turned out. You could always add other things. You could put in a boat, a little canoe. You could have trees. You could have maybe some sea life, whatever makes you happy. But the last thing I want you to do, if you have a pencil or a pen or a marker or anything nearby, just quickly sign it. That way, everybody knows it's yours. You're all done, and you can say, yes, I did that with only 8 colors of paint and the brush that came with it. and a fan and some water, but great job, everybody. I'm really glad that you tried this. And now you know how to make a sunset. And you can see what I was talking about, that the top part is very melty, the colors all run together, and the bottom part is more rough and it's more shiny. So we have not the melty, delicious pastel goo of the sky, but we have like that choppy, gleamy business of the water. And we did paint a sunset, but we didn't have to actually put the sun itself in. We just had to bring in some of that light. We know the sun's low because it's light here, and we go to a darker color at the top of the sky. Great work, everybody. Try this again. Try it with different colors. Try it upright instead of, try it portrait orientation instead of landscape. You can try it with just a little sandy hill with some trees on it as opposed to the larger rocks. Lots of different ways to do this. Thank you so much for joining me today. And like we talked about, if you're looking at it thinking, I don't know, set it somewhere, set it away. Go take the day and visit it tomorrow, and maybe you'll be better friends with it. If you're not, just try it again. Thanks so much. Have a good one.